Rose, community member. Carrie Tuckett from Canadian Hearing Services.
And Diane Morrell, accessibility coordinator for the city.
I'm Don McConnell, and my claim to fame is my grandson is 5 weeks old today. Thank you.
And my name is Derek Ronaldi. I'm a committee member and also the chair of the site plan committee.
Lane Sharpenberg, committee member.
Frank Kohler, committee member.
And Stephanie Perry, I'm from the planning department.
Stephanie, no, Peter's coming today?
Just gonna try, if not, he'll connect via Zoom.
Okay, no problems. I don't have any comments other than if, when people are talking, and this is my monthly reminder to people, please identify yourself first, and then you can make your statements. Everyone has a copy of the minutes from our last meeting on May the 10th. I hope people have had an opportunity to go through that. Are there any additions, errors, omissions that people would like to make?
Mr. Chair, I did print off some agendas and the minutes and the site plan report if anybody needs copies to follow along.
I just need a copy of my site plan.
Right? That would be Derek. Sorry, does anybody else need a copy of the materials to follow?
Just in case.
No. The top one is the agenda, the middle one is the minutes from last one, and the bottom one, Carol, is the site plan report.
Okay.
And if everyone is good with the minutes, can I have a mover and a seconder to approve those? Craig, you move them, Derek, you second them.
Okay.
Perfect. Steph, you can just show that in the minutes, and we're all going to vote. Aye in favor. Perfect.
Oh, I don't get to vote. I held up my arm. I'm so used to being a committee member. I voted and I don't get to vote.
Anyways, thank you. That's okay.
Thank you.
All those people who think Diane should get the vote, yes, right, good. There we go.
The procedure bylaw might have a small.
There's a small hiccup there, right?
Yeah.
We're all rebels here anyways. It doesn't matter.
God bless and keep renewal. We, Mr. Chair, historical note. We once used electronic meetings before the city bylaws were changed to allow it. And we got our ears pinned back 8 ways to Sunday by the former city solicitor.
Really?
Ms. Kenny suggestively violated, I think we will, if we'd been arrested, we were on the hook for several $1,000 in fines. They run us a poll.
Well, fortunately, that didn't happen.
She was not pleased.
Yes, moving right along. I want to tell you any other stories later. I do have to ask, if anyone has a conflict of interest with any matter that is on the agenda. Once again, in order to have a conflict of interest, you or a member of your immediate family have to have a sort of a financial interest in that matter. Seeing none, let's move on. We do have a presentation. Virginia's not here yet, so shall we just skip on?
No, actually, Virginia sends her regrets. She's had a family issue that she has to deal with.
Okay.
So she sent me her speaking notes. So if everybody's okay with it, I'll read her notes. We can bring up the presentation first. Carol, sorry, I do have visual materials. Can you pass this down for Carol? And Diane, are you able to see? Would you like to be able to sit beside Carol to see the materials? You'll manage? Okay. All right. If you have any questions, please feel free to jump in. So as you know, we have a splash pad at Bellevue Park, and that has gone over very, very well. And then a splash pad was planned for the plaza, which will hopefully be done later this summer. And there is a splash pad going into Manzo Park. So this park, this splash pad will be connected to paved pathways to be accessible. There will be change stalls installed the same as at Bellevue Park. And if you forward through a couple of these videos, the very last one, So for those that may not be able to see the materials, we have a picture of two change room stalls. They're outdoor change room cabana type buildings. One is for people who are ambulatory, and then there is a larger one for persons who use a mobility device. And those are the change rooms. So those same change rooms that are at Bellevue Park right now will be going into Manzo Park. Additionally, another picture on this same slide shows umbrellas, shade umbrellas. I'm not sure of the exact location within the splash pad where that is, but I would imagine it's a cool sitting place for parents, family members to sit in and watch the kids as they are in the splash pad. So that will be going on. That'll be going on this summer. I don't know exactly what the time frame for completion for that is. The other thing having to do with the splash pads is that last year we purchased a pool wheelchair for use at the Bellevue Park. So that'll be going in with a process in place to kind of trial, so people that use mobility devices, that they're able to go and use the splash pad as well without getting their primary mobility device all wet. There's a small glitch with the pool wheelchair that we purchased for that, and that is that it is a large adult-sized pool wheelchair that also sits someone at a 90-degree angle, and for youth, that's not really appropriate for them. And the other thing is that for youth that have trunk control issues, we need something that seats people differently. So we're looking at purchasing a piece of equipment that will meet that need, because I'm assuming most of the users of the splash pad will be youth. And then depending upon how things go, we may need to adjust the process for being able to use the equipment, and where it's stored and how that whole process works. And if that goes well, we'd like to see that rolled out at all of the splash pads, so people can go to their neighborhood splash pad and play. So that's just an extra bit of information. Some of the slides on there, if you want to go back, Steph, because I think that was the last slides. You can see or barely see, because of the big font at the bottom on our screen, the location of the splash pad at Manzo Park. I took a drive by. I didn't go into the park, everything was still closed, but it looks like it's going to be in a good central location. I don't know much about the building from Manzo Park, if there are any accessible spaces indoors, as in a bathroom or anything. So I'll have to assess that at a later date as well. Any questions about the park?
Great, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, you used Diana. And I believe that indoor facility at Manzo Park has. It was an older one. I don't know if it's been fully addressed. It was on our to-do list. I'm not certain if it got to the done part.
Yeah,
That in which it was it's been identified because that complex was built. It is an aging, it's an older piece of infrastructure. Not certain.
it was kind of my fear as well, so I'll have to follow up on that.
I'm certain we knew, I'm certain it was on the list of things to be done, Dan, I'm not certain it got to be done. It was identified that, I'm certain of that, I'm not certain of what's happened since. Renovating a building is always more difficult than getting it right the first time.
Absolutely.
Other questions?
I do have a bit of a question. How are we going to protect them from the homeless from damage and like, these people now are really holding us hostage. Used to be, they weren't even afraid of police and that, but now at an incident at my place where they said, oh, I'll just shoot the police. But I've got a gun and things like this, so Like I feel the city's being held hostage by a lot of these people, and with the plaza and now this.
Yeah.
And we were putting a lot of money and effort and time for them to go in and just pack it up and don't give it on.
Right, can I just clarify the question just a little bit, Diane? Do you mean the park space, the splash pad space, or are you speaking specifically about the accessible equipment, pool equipment?
All,
All, I don't know the answer to that.
I know, there is no answer at this point, but unless there's special security guards or something, but it would, even those people would be hiding in the bushes if those people could go on. I would be.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that, but I can pose that question to parks to be if they have any special patrols. I know they've got park staff, but they'll be cleaning and doing various things throughout the park at various different times. But I don't know about security.
It's a shame because it's a beautiful idea. I love it. I think it's wonderful, but what's the point if these people are gonna just move in and do what they do?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say, when I say homeless, I don't mean all homeless. There's a lot of them that are really, there's some real renegades in there. Not good.
I know, then if I can, that it's just at the downtown Civic Plaza, they will be staffed during the day and they do have security at night.
Okay.
So that's definitely help.
But look what's happening on Lower Queen there, the windows and everything are being smashed randomly,
Yeah,
like daily
it's
now.
a problem, it is.
So security hasn't helped there.
Public Wendy's has that concern now. It wasn't there in our. It's a change, not for the better.
Yeah.
You didn't have this discussion.
No,
What used to be, we were afraid of policemen, like, and we respected them, authorities and things like that, and, oh, here comes a police that, I mean, I'm not saying I was perfect when I was a teenager, and then, oh my God, here comes a policeman, run, nowadays, they just pop you.
what was different? Not always for the better.
Dan, I just want to confirm, and I think you mentioned this at the beginning, if someone goes to the Manzo Park and they park in the parking lot, there is a continuous smooth path to this.
That's what I understand is from the parking lot, there is supposed to be a paved pathway. That the splash pad will be connected to that.
Okay, and you may not know the answer to this question, but the waterproof chair that they're putting in here that you guys are looking for is being paid from funds from this committee or funds from
That hasn't been determined.
to be determined, okay?
Yeah.
And the reason I asked that is I wonder if there's been any consideration given to the downtown plaza. Because I know that there's accessible playground equipment there, or there will be. The splash pad there is a little bit different. It does because it's hockey rink, not hockey rink. It's a hockey rink. Sorry, forget the hockey rink. It's sort of a ring, a big circle you go around in the winter. So there's no equipment like they have at the Bellevue Park. It's just water that's sprayed at people. And I just wondered if we'd given any thought to doing something there as well.
Yeah, I think we're gonna trial the pool wheelchair this year at Bellevue.
Okay,
And see how that process works. We'll get people to register so we know who is using the equipment. And there will be a process in place to make sure that people can use the equipment when they get there. And we'll hopefully work out the bugs on existing equipment. And then probably next year, look at purchasing somehow through some budget, more appropriate youth water, wheelchairs.
yeah. You and I have the same thoughts on this, I know, which is if they're building something, it should come from the building budget rather than from our budget.
Yeah.
So, okay, any other questions on this? Yeah.
Just on how they would keep it clean, who would be responsible to clean the equipment after somebody uses it. That's gonna be worked out too.
Yeah, that's a process that needs to be worked out. You're right, Derek. And I don't have that in place at this point.
Great.
One further question pertaining to this is the Diane's suggested registration. Has that been communicated to the general public yet?
No, it has not.
Okay, just please remember communications, we need to make this as broad as possible,
Yes,
because if you don't know how to go about registering, it's one of those.
yeah, we're still working on the process, even for registration and what does registration mean? What kind of information do we need in order to?
Privacy concerns and all that.
Yeah, so people's private information, and then what is the process gonna be? They're gonna call somebody. What happens after they call somebody because they're heading to the park at 2 o'clock today? You know.
Yeah.
All of that has not been finalized yet.
Any other questions on the Manitoba Board? Did you want to move along to Point de Chene? Are you doing Point de Chene as well?
I'm doing Point de Chene as well, and I'm going to actually read Virginia's summary if everybody is okay with that. So we had applied for a grant last year, which was not successful for the Point de Chene Park for accessibility upgrades, as well as some other features that were going to be upgraded. Why have we been signed out of Zoom? I'm not sure what's going on, something goofy. It's a good thing we don't have anyone currently joining our meeting online. Anyways,
Peter.
oh, I wonder, oh. Okay, I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
So that grant wasn't successful, but there was another grant that came out this year. I think it was Inclusive Communities Grant. And so Virginia from the Recreation Division applied for that grant as well on the same criteria that we used for assessing the park last year. And after Virginia had applied for it through the financial end of it, there was an outstanding amount of $29,387, and the committee had made a commitment to fund some of the application last year. So that is being requested, with the grant being $60,000 and the request from the committee being $29,387. We've not received confirmation yet, as it's pending. We should hear in the next few weeks. If we get the grant, we would actually require the entire above amount from the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Plans for updating the accessible parking for the paths of travel. There are some paved paths. If anyone hasn't been there in the last while, there are some paved paths, but some of them are in need of repair. Some of them have crumbled away. Ramps to access the washrooms. So there are on-site washrooms that were not accessible. So, but to start out with, ramps to access the washrooms, and then widening of the doorways to both the bathrooms and the change rooms. Those are two separate spaces within the building, side by side. So male, female, both washrooms and change rooms. And then also looking at adding Moby mats, which is a firm mat surface specifically designed for sand use that makes it accessible for people to get right down to the water, as well as a water wheelchair to go with that. So a Moby chair as well. So then further, Virginia says, upgrades will include the creation of a paved firm level surface for 2 accessible parking spaces, whereas right now it's gravel and it's really not as accessible as it could be and should be. The 2 ramps to the change room facilities, because there's a difference in the grade from where the building is and where the surrounding surface is. And there were ramps there, but they were really very inadequate. Washroom update to include a wheelchair accessible bathroom stall as well, in both the men's and the women's, whereas there are no accessible stalls in either one currently. Okay, the accessible paths of travel will provide access for persons with mobility and vision disabilities to navigate the park safely with independence. So the Mobi mat that goes in have they're blue and they have a contrasting white stripe down the middle to assist with navigation. I'm not 100% sure if the Mobi mats will be going in on level surfaces as well as down to the water, because if you've ever been to Pointe du Chêne, you know there's quite a grade from where you enter the park and where you get down to the water. So I'm not 100% clear on that, if the Mobi mats will be at other areas through the park. So that is the update with Pointe du Chêne.
Carol, I got a question about these Mobi mats. So they lay them out, are they left out or do they fold them up every night and in the morning roll them out again, or is it something that is always there?
It's sort of both, so it stays out overnight, so they get laid down and stretched out and pegged so that they stay firmly anchored. And that will be out for the season. But when the season is done, it's the end of summer, they get rolled up and stored.
Okay.
It's, if I can interject here, basically, we do that with the ski programs, we have mats that we put out every time we go skiing. They're taken, they're folded up. The only reason why we can't leave them where we do the skiing is because we don't we don't want to lose our equipment, and plus we don't have the permission of the park management to leave our stuff there. So we have to take it out. It's very easy, just a couple of pegs, you roll it up and that's it.
But if they're gonna leave them out all the time, what are the chances out there that they would get stolen?
They're very heavy. I'm sure the three people would get together and haul them away, but I think that's fairly remote.
Okay.
I would certainly hope so.
Other questions?
This is Derek LaValle here. Got a question for you, Diane. When we get the wheelchair bathrooms done and the whole upgrades done, we gotta look at a pair bus system, or we people to get out there for with disabilities with chairs.
Yes, and we've already started that discussion as well, Derek.
Okay.
So certainly I agreed, we have to have an accessible means for people to get out to the park.
Great, go.
Just one further question regarding the 29,000, Diane.
26,000.
Not certain what's in the bear removal budget at present, that would be my first question. Plus we have it. Can we cover the request that's been made is the
Yes.
line for?
Yes, I don't know the exact figure of what's in the reserves. I think what do they call that? The
Uncommitted.
uncommitted funds are in the area of 50,000 right now.
Just, further on that question though. Are they asking this committee at this time for a recommendation? Because I think at $30,000 in excess of 25,000, that's gonna have to go to council. And council will have to accept the grant money as well.
That's right.
Okay, so it's not really our decision, it's actually council's decision at the end of the day. Are they looking for a recommendation from us? Or are they gonna wait until they find out if they're getting the rest of the $60,000 grant or whatever the amount was?
I honestly don't know the process for that. I would hope that if we are successful in getting this grant, that it's for this summer. And so it would be, I think, move the process along quicker if that was something that the committee could approve at this point.
And I asked for a mover and a seconder then for a resolution to recommend the expenditure of these funds, 26,000, whatever the number was. Should we be successful in getting the $60,000 grant?
When we're.
What, yeah, right, that's exactly. So is everybody okay? We'll change the wording, but something along those lines. So what we're saying is we're good with this, but we're only good with this if somebody else gives us $60,000. Because we don't want to commit that money and just have it kind of sit out there for a while. So Carol, you prefer to second
Yeah,
that?
yes.
Craig, you moved that?
Or Carol, do you want to go? I'll second it.
Okay.
Carol's gonna move it and Craig is gonna second that.
Perfect.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, thank you very much. Well, you make a great Virginia, you know that. Yeah.
Don't say that. I don't want to replace Virginia. I don't think she can be replaced.
No, you're right. You're doing a great job. You want to talk about Queen Street reconstruction?
Yes, and actually, let me grab my notes from yesterday because I didn't grab that. So one moment.
Can I ask the members that are here, both Diane and I went to the open house yesterday. Did anybody else get a chance to go? It's,
I wanted to, but I had a prior commitment, but I got to be back.
I found a lot of the discussion focused on cyclists. Yeah.
No, wheelchair,
Meaning,
no, wheelchair.
meaning the folks, the cycling club are out in full court.
No, actually, I was there for over an hour and I didn't see anybody that I recognized from the cycling club. There was a lot of downtown business people there. There was a few members of the public, but I would say the majority of the people who were in attendance are business people from the downtown.
Was the food good?
With who?
Was the food good?
I didn't have any, but I did notice that several members of the public, not city staff, were able to go next door to Main Street Cafe and come back with a glass of wine.
Oh.
But that's not us.
Okay.
That's not us.
Right, sorry about that, folks. All right, so there was some visual materials that were provided. And I'm happy to share that, and I think it would be a really great idea if perhaps our site plan subcommittee might like to get together in a couple of weeks to go over what the visual materials are and have discussions. But some of the things that I noted with the things that we saw, one of the things that they said specifically on the designs was that they have AODA compliant boulevards, which shows bricks. So I'm not entirely sure what that means. I have a sense of what it means, but there was no explanation of what that meant. The only challenge that I have with using bricks is currently, if anyone's been downtown in the last few years, the sidewalk that is in front of the federal building, the Service Canada building, the level that the sidewalk sits at and the level that the bricks sit at is about a 4-inch difference, which is a huge barrier for anybody, for small things with wheels. That was a term we learned recently. As well as anybody walking or anyone with a vision disability, quite a hazard, huge hazard. So I'm not a huge fan of bricks. I understand the use, why people like to use them. They're visually appealing. It can add some variety to the visual field. It can aid also with navigating because you've got a contrast difference from bricks to sidewalk. But we just need to understand, what does AODA compliant boulevard mean? There's a couple of other terms that were used that I don't understand what the terms were. Lay-by paving, that's one of them.
Lay-by paving is basically a parking spot.
Oh,
Or it's where it could be the drop-off spot. It's out of the main lane of traffic. It is for a vehicle, but it's not a sidewalk.
paving, okay, great. Someone asked the question about how will the construction maintain accessible paths of travel through the downtown? We all know that when there is construction, it's a huge disruption. And there is a requirement under the AODA for an alternate path of travel or service disruptions, that there are alternates. We haven't been very good at doing that with the city of Sault Ste. Marie, but this is, again, a wonderful opportunity to make sure that this happens and is an example for all other construction that happens. There are 2 parkettes in there. And as soon as I saw the parkette, so if you don't know what a parkette is, there is one currently, I think, where is it? Where's the parkette, Don? So I'm Queen.
It's on Queen Street, it's actually in front of the parking lot right next to, Blazes or not Blazes, Two Blasters.
Okay, yes,
A parkette is a baby park,
it's a baby park.
it's a baby park, They're about 5 weeks old, really cute.
And he was pulled the pair of us off, we moved to the Comstock office, which is in the same building.
They're-
Yes, you're absolutely right, Craig. So as soon as I saw the parkettes, I thought, that would be a great place for a wheelchair, a mobility device charging station. As well as the plaza, which wasn't part of that discussion, but that's okay, we can still have those discussions. And since they're kind of digging everything up and replacing it, I thought it would be great if the sidewalks could include something tactile on the ground, so that people with vision disabilities, when they're navigating, that they know that they're following in a straight direction. And then something different tactile, and there are products out there that show this is an entrance to one of the businesses, so that people know where the entrances are.
Yes.
Carol,
Go ahead, Carol.
is this inside the downtown plaza?
No, what I'm talking about is the Queen Street itself.
Okay.
Yeah, so the sidewalks, whether they're using, I've heard that 2 rows of paving bricks can be used as a contrast. It's a contrast, and it's also tactilely different underfoot and with your cane.
Go ahead, Anna.
Yes, something that blew in. When I was downtown, and I like the idea that you're gonna redo Queen. But what's hard for us is they put the signage at these buildings, whatever the business is, really high. And everything has to be flat against the wall. We can't see that. So example, for those, I walked up and down, up and down, up and down, trying to find this place. I was supposed to meet someone. I had no idea. And I asked several people on the street, they didn't know either. It was Shabby Motley's, like, nobody knew. I don't know where it is.
We may have found a question I can answer. The reason all of the signage on Queen Street is flat against the building
Right,
dates back to the 1960s. And I forget the name of the report that was done, but the business community was really upset with having signs that stuck out, because I would put my sign right in front of your sign,
right,
and that didn't go well. So they decided they were going to get rid of everybody's sign, and you could only have a sign that was flat against the building, which means that absolutely nobody can see, you know, where these businesses are. So so when I was still planning director, we changed the bylaw to say you can have signs that come out, but they can't be bigger than a certain size. Right, and I know that I know the Downtown Association is trying to work on a standard to get a number of their members to adopt basically the same sign. So it'll be like a nice unified look as you walk down the street. But yeah, what you've identified, Diane, is a problem, and I know the Downtown Association is working on it, and the rules have been changed to allow that.
oh, that's good, again, like even if it was on the window. All these businesses, it's something that, I just got back from Sudbury, and the same thing, it's a new mall. And the signs, I swear to God, are 200 feet high. The building is huge, and they got this, it's called, it was a baby store, baby outfits and that. And it was called Baby. I did not know that. And I said, what? Who? So, my son-in-law's with me and I said, what does that say? He goes, darned if I know. So he had to go back and look up. He says, it's called Baby.
That's the start, yeah.
What a waste of money for something. That costs a lot of money to stick them. He said it's made for people driving by. Well, if I'm driving by, that's. I'm supposed to be looking at the road. I'm not supposed to be looking at here.
I made a note of that, Diane, so it's good feedback as well. And then the last one that someone brought forward, someone that I met at the event, was the need for benches along Queen Street, areas to sit. And we all know that benches are high on our priority list.
I'm a TikToker. Anyway, benches, it flips. So if the sun is in your face, you get up and you just somehow manipulate it and then the bench comes out equal, so you can sit on the other side of the bench. I thought that is cool.
Do you mean the bench actually moves? Or
Yeah.
you just move from one side?
No, the actual seat moves. You push a button or flip it, I don't know. It was just a whole series on inventions in Sweden, Norway, etc. that they're way ahead of us and gadgets. And this bench was like, oh my gosh, that would be so handy. Because if the sun's out, you don't want to be sitting like this, but you don't want to sit, if you can just change. But again, like I like your idea, maybe even two benches back to back, this way, so that.
A little more. Excuse me, but that, Diane, I love the technology, but you don't know what one of those benches, you don't know what the up front is on one of those benches,
Oh, it's gonna be hot.
so that's.
Oh, yeah, but I am just saying it's out there,
Yeah.
like, let's see.
Oh, yeah,
Again, like, okay, we don't have to use that particular, but when she said about, the seat placement, well, yeah, why not even two benches back to back? Or a seat with one back. I don't know, I've seen them somewhere in this suit. Benches with seats like going both ways.
Yeah, that's probably on Bay Street, because I know the company that made those benches for us makes that particular model where it's a long bench, it's maybe 6 feet, and for 3 feet, the bench face, there's a back facing one way, and for the other 3 feet, it faces the other way.
Oh, that,
And they're well used, because then
yeah,
you're on your own little bench, you're not really sharing it with that other person.
exactly.
And this morning Countryway has their own bench and it's around the trees, which maximizes the seating area. And you can face whatever direction you would like, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, that's cute, comment. Nan, did you have other comments you wanted to share?
No, I'm just jotting that down as well. No, so those are just some of my observations. I didn't actually get all the way around the room when I was there at first. It was quite busy. So I think it would be great if site plan wanted to look at those.
Yes.
And we can provide feedback. I'll put it out to the entire committee when the site plan committee chooses a date, and everyone is welcome to come and please give their feedback.
That would be great. Wayne, did you have a comment there?
Again?
Did you have a question?
Oh, no.
No, you're good? Okay. Carol, go ahead.
So Carol, I do have a comment. It's not about Queen Street, but it's about the benches. At Clerk Park, somebody has with mobility device. I guess they've got a handicap picnic table there and it's been moved. And they can't get to it because there's no cement path to get to it. And that's the only accessible picnic table in that whole park. So people are requesting if they could put more accessible picnic tables and to make sure that there's a cement path going to it so they can wheel to the picnic table.
Good point.
First of all, if it's a city park, why is somebody moving them without the city's permission, or is it private park? And people are,
You know, I can answer that, Derek, it happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you and two strong friends, we just pick up the bench and move it, I mean, you know, that's what.
You've got family reunions, got to
Exactly.
get together, so like, they have to just fit at a table for six.
Yeah.
So, that they do.
Okay,
But the real question is. They took. The picnic tables out that used to be beside the neighborhood. Something center?
Did say go,
What's the name of
the Queens,
Memory Resource Center.
Neighborhood Resource Center, thank you. And those were like, I'd be interested to see where those were, because I think there was 3 tables and at least one of them was accessible. So,
but they took the tables out and it's got those bricks, right, or those cement pads or whatever. Some of those cement pads, I mean, I'm gonna go back and check it out, because I went there last week. And no tables, but my king got caught up on, I guess, wherever the tables were, they had bricks that were raised. So if they don't put those tables back, somebody's gonna end up falling on those bricks that were raised to put the table on,
good point.
so put the tables back.
That's right, brought my lunch down in the table.
Other comments on that? I hate to throw things on that aren't on the agenda, but did you want to talk about the information fair? This is a little bit of information for everybody.
Sure. So was that just last week? No, that was 2 weeks ago, I think, was the information fair. So the National Accessibility Week and the information fair that took place at the Main Street Active Living Center. It was a very well-attended event. There was lots of service providers present at the event and lots of visitors. I had a table there with our accessibility plans, our accessibility policies, and a bit of other information of interest to people with disabilities. So I managed to at the very least, convince people to take a plan and please look through it. Let me know what you like, what didn't you like, or what we, maybe be doing a little bit better. So quite a few of those were given out at the event. I enjoyed it very much. I loved being able to speak with people and hear from them. So I gathered some feedback from people about accessibility. From what I understand, the organizers enjoyed it as well, and we're looking forward to doing it again next year.
Feedback that I got too from the people, they were thrilled to be able to talk to you, other people in person. They now feel part of the programs and or whatever, but me like several people that went in said hi to me and then back out, and they were thrilled with being able to talk to people the way, not just sort of move it.
Right.
And Carol, next year, what we feel what we're gonna do is the people that had the displays, okay, we're gonna have them come a half an hour earlier before it starts. So that all these different agencies and people can meet up with each other, okay? So that they can know who's there and before anybody else, before it's even open, okay? So this way here, let's say somebody talked to, let's say Carrie, and Carrie doesn't know the answer about whatever, but she knows you have that answer. So now that she knows you, she's gonna say, okay, so-and-so go see Diane. Okay, now that's the same as Diane, somebody's talking to Diane and Diane says, I'm not too sure about that, but I know somebody with hearing services. You know what? Contact Carrie, okay? This way here, everybody there is gonna know each other. And then there'll always be some kind of a communication going and everybody's helping each other.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Great feedback, ladies. Thank you.
Wayne, go ahead.
What is the name of that place down at 619 Bay? What is the name of that activity center?
It's the Active Bay Street Active Living Center. It used to be seniors center, drop-in center, but they've changed it to an active living center, which is great. It's more inclusive and it means people our seniors are being active.
It was really, because they had an awful lot of people that could answer any inquiries for you, and of course, I met up with Carol and Diana down there.
Yeah,
And I actually got talking to another person there. We got talking about dealing with living with diabetes. It was interesting. We had like, I think I talked her ear off. She wasn't ready to give all these questions, but you know, I like that. And also they did, maybe about a month ago, there was a podcast, I think it was from Ottawa. And it was about accessibility and people, like, they had one fellow there, he was from, I think it was like the Bank of Commerce or something. And he was talking about, like, the accessibility, the improvements in the accessibility and such. And it was good, but I think there's an awful lot of work to do still in getting that. Sorry, I stuttered.
I can't see.
We both got our things.
You have me to stutter, Carol.
I didn't know you could either.
Question through you to Diane, did anybody comment on the new buses?
Yes.
Yeah, not so much at the event, although, I mean, Transit was there and they had a table beside me. And I chatted with them for a few minutes, so I'm not sure what feedback they received. I didn't specifically at that event receive feedback on the new buses,
Okay,
not at that event, but I have in other places and other ways. I've had lots of feedback.
okay, and a lot of your feedback, semi-good, semi-bad?
Well, as often is the case with accessibility and barrier removal, sometimes when you remove a barrier, another one can be created. So I think the buses fall into that category. So they've solved a fairly important safety issue in one regard. And I think inadvertently another one has been created. The new buses, from what I understand, meet the AODA standards for accessibility. But as you know, Derek, there's another barrier that's been created with them. So there's no easy answers on that. But Transit will be joining us in September, so I'll be putting out an email to folks sometime late August to ask for any questions that you have so that we can send them off to Transit ahead of time as much as possible so they can be prepared to answer the questions as completely as possible.
Great, Don, through you, Diane, Dan. Since I got one question for you for transit. Once the new readers get installed on the pair buses, and you can either use your phone or a credit card, as opposed to the 40-1 pass that's presently in my back pocket. As an ambulatory transit user, they frequently dispatch cabins for me, which is a great thought. But what happens if I choose to not use the 40-1 pass and I put it on my credit card? Can they put it? Speaking with the cab driver, they had no idea what they knew the process was in the works, but they've not worked out the how-to part yet.
Right.
And that's just, now I don't mind it, but it'd be simpler for me just to use my regular credit card as opposed to having to go. It's a little odd. It's a bit of an odd process for me to hand a check in. Getting a 40-1 pass is a little convoluted. So if I could just use my credit card, that would be my intention from now on. But I want to know how to work with the cab because frequently, not complain, the system works really well for me in that regard. I can manage a cab. Whereas others would, and it doesn't need to be an accessible one, it frequently isn't. But that was just one, it's just a small enough thing that they might not think about it. And until somebody brings, I'd rather have it discussed now while we're sitting having the, than to be stuck somewhere without being able to cover the street, my portion. Just something, Derek, I know we ran that by the driver the operator this afternoon. The response was polite, but heck if I know. You know, basically, good question, Greg, we haven't worked that one out yet, because I always ask when I see them, you know, when will the technology come in, because it will be a great asset. I mean, not complaining about the technological improvement, I'm just saying, have we thought about X? And sometimes people don't think about it, because I don't know how many ambulatory users of the Parabus system we have. They don't think that number exists somewhere in transit, but they've never, I don't think I've ever asked for it, I don't think they've ever shared it.
Right.
I'm not sure they can share it, you know, privacy rules being different than what. Those things are being updated, I don't want to be in violation, I don't want the privacy commissioner coming after us. Which they might.
Go ahead.
My question is, there's a lot of people out there that physically can't do it on the phone. So what are they gonna do if they're by themselves and they have to? I don't think we should be eliminating the 40 pass cards, because if somebody can't do it, they still need to pay to get somewhere. So has that been looked at?
It's a good question as well, Derek. Perhaps as a committee, again, voluntary, we can organize a meeting to review what this new system looks like, how it works with that specific topic in mind. So perhaps we'll think about that. We'll use the site plan subcommittee as the body for that.
Okay, and I've got another question for you. Through to Diane, Mr. Chair. What happens is that there's some people in a group home that have to pay, so their attendants would have to know the credit card or debit card that they're using. So that might be an issue too. So you can put it on my lap, because that seems to be my forte.
Okay. Sounds good, Derek.
What we've concluded is that for some people, a credit card would work better, for others, they need to keep that pass card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I think that's a good message to send back to transit.
And can we go on record as to explain how the attendant card works during that meeting?
What do you mean specifically about how the attendant card works?
Well, I got myself an attendant card, and because I fell once at a certain location, now they're afraid that I'm gonna fall all the time, and then I need somebody with me at all times. So this is what I mean, if they could explain it more during that meeting.
Right, so what I understand of the attendant card, if you have an attendant card, your attendant rides free. So there's no, are there fare questions attached to that, Derek, or did I misunderstand?
Basically, what I'm saying is that I don't need them all the time. But since I did fall, I got it for the specifics, so that we're not meeting at a location. So there's like this meeting here today, I don't need an attendant to ride with me on the bus.
Gotcha, I understand what your question is, Derek. Good question.
So we need to ask these questions, because if people start getting attendant cards and they don't need them, how do we use them? What is the right way? What is the wrong way to use them?
Right, okay, so we'll clarify how the attendant card works. It's not a fair question, meaning fair as in money question or a payment question. It's specifically about the attendant card.
Yeah,
I gotcha. Okay,
Sounds good, thank you.
and sorry,
I just got a Carol,
Go ahead, Carol.
question for Derek. Is it, because you don't want an attendant at certain times and want to be able to take an attendant at some other times?
well,
I don't want, you don't want to be forced to have an attendant every time if you have a card.
well, the thing of it is, the attendant might not be able to leave their house early enough to catch the bus. So we have 5 minutes grace time if the attendant is not at my house. Am I gonna get penalized because they know I have an attendant card in my wallet? And like, am I gonna get penalized because of the attendant being a few minutes late?
Eric, what you're looking for is a clarification on the protocol. Because you don't, as you said, you don't need a person with you in an escort in every circumstance.
Yeah, exactly.
That's,
Okay, and see, I think this is where it needs to be talked to with transit. Okay, because that's the same with me, I have an attendant card, but I don't need an attendant with me all the time. Same as Derek, but I think, I'm not positive, I think it says, if you have an attendant card, then you have to have an attendant with you all the time.
I think that's the criteria as well, and I think we need to have that clarified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit harsh.
Yeah, it does.
Because I fell over and there was 4 people that lifted me off the ground. I was on the way to the bus and that's why I got this attendant card. Now I'm labeled as, oh, he can't be by himself. And that's not fair.
I agree, Gary.
the accident made folks a little nervous.
Yeah, so
I expect that card was developed.
I don't know, but I'm gonna leave it there because
Yeah.
there's just,
I suspect when that card was developed, the people using it were residents of the long-term care facilities and they have their staff with them when they make. These policies date back decades, folks, and sometimes they need to be tweaked. We're in the process of tweaking the policy or requesting them to be tweaked. Shouldn't be.
Well, that's a fair question, as Diane said, she'll put those together and send that off to transit, so they have a chance to think about this, and maybe they can come to the meeting with some. Concrete suggestions as opposed to, that's a good point, let me think about that.
Yeah. That's what I did, be forewarned, because there may be something simple that we haven't. We don't know the intricacies of their requirements and. They do really well, but they're not real specific. Again, the design of the new bus is the classic example of not talking to the right folks before you order the bus. It was unfortunate, but because I will bet you don't, Derek, I will bet you my month's pension check, you could not get the internal ramp on that book.
yeah, but we already talked to them about that and said they weren't gonna order any more of those buses like that, and we'll just now that we complained about that bus, and I took pictures of time I get on 42.
I mean, I find the ramp difficult when I'm a tad more mobile than you are.
But I've even sent pictures to Diane about that bus, particular bus. And she got it.
Yeah. Mark, that design choice would be the nicest way I could put it.
If they solved one problem and created another.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on to the next item on our agenda? We have no old business. We do have barrier-free parking violation updates.
Yeah, so every month we've been trying to track the accessible parking violations that have been ticketed. And there are very few, which is not really, I think, a true reflection of what's going on in the community. So I think it's been important to know what those numbers are, so we know how that process is going. So there were 3 in May. And I was able to get to the locations of where this was done. Surprisingly, one of the accessible parking violations was right in the police services building. Surprisingly.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you. Okay, good. Another one was at Cambria Mall, and the other one was at the Spring March parking lot. So again, there's 3 accessible parking violations in May, and as of last week, there were none issued in June. So it's surprising.
Is that only in the daytime, if somebody checks these,
No, sorry, and for our new members, of course, you wouldn't know some of the history behind that. So about a year or 2 ago, maybe a few years ago now, we lost a couple of years through COVID, but the accessible parking violations and having those checked by police services have always been a bit of a problem. And as we know, our police are very busy with all kinds of additional issues these days. So it just doesn't make sense to have our police worrying about parking tickets. It is a big deal though, not having those lots patrolled. So a couple of years ago, that was contracted to N1 Solutions, or they used to be Norpro, but now it's N1 Solutions, because I think they have a few different services that they provide. So the process is that any individual can call N1 Solutions and have them come and check something if you see a violation. The only problem is they have not put on additional staff for this service. So if they're in the middle of something else that they're not able to leave at the time, they can't just drop it and come over and issue tickets.
that's understandable.
So yes, it is for sure. However, it may not be that, the person's just running in for a minute, right? Whereas if you were able to issue a parking ticket at that moment, that would be a lesson learned by somebody. So I'm not really convinced that this system is really working the way it's intended either. But that's part of the process of what we're doing every month to review the accessible parking permit infractions.
Because as you well know, the parking lot here in the winter is horrible. Nobody cleans it properly at all. Very dangerous. A lot of our aquatics is after 7.
Right.
Solid ice out there, so I get it. But all the handicap, 4 or 5 different times this last winter were built with no handicap stickers. So the ones that had handicap, we were parked, if they had a hockey game or something, we were parked way out in the boondocks. And we had to really be, it was scary. If we fell, we'd have been toast. We made it and then back out. And when we come out, it's young people. And some of them are picking up their kids or something and they don't give a rat's butt.
See what the WAC Center,
Yeah.
the West Bend Community Center.
Yes.
Yes, all the wheelchair spots were taken up.
Yeah.
Plus, they were parking all along the building because they didn't want to walk to home.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's your cue, right.
Done. Could we look at a system where staff at the community centers could issue tickets?
That's what I'm thinking.
Actually,
Or even a warning, even a warning when you're being watched, like we know. We put a little something in their windshield.
Council can just designate the enforcement.
Yeah.
Derek, go ahead.
Okay, I asked a food attendant, we had a gathering on the 30th me. And I asked this this food, like you know how they have the concession stands? Like the concession
Where is this, Derek?
at the West End Community Center.
Okay, thank you.
And I asked her, I said, "Now, how would one get a hold of security?" She goes, "Well, I don't have a radio, so I can't call down." I said, "Well, why don't you have a phone in there that you could use to call security to open this certain room?" She goes, "Well, I don't have that ability." I'm like, "Hey, that's strange. You should be able to have that ability just in case something goes wrong at the concession stand."
If I can just comment on that for a minute, there wouldn't be security there, but there would be a manager there. Who's the person who should be contacted if there's a problem, that's his job is to sort that out. And then he would decide, is it just a room that needs to be open, he can do that. Is there a security issue and we need to call the police, you make that decision as well.
But I asked her, I said, "How would you get a hold of security guard or manager?" She goes, "Well, I have no way of getting a hold of them." It's like, okay,
That's just bad communication.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something, if I can, just back up to something Lisa said, because Lisa, I think you and I were thinking about the same
Yeah.
things, which is. Dan, do you know, like, we've contracted to N1. I was a little bit surprised that you said that they gave up tickets at like Kingman or wherever it was. I didn't know that they went on the private property to do that. So they do it,
They do apparently.
because I was wondering if it makes more sense to have them. My suggestion was going to be, does it make more sense to have them focus on municipal lots? Like, that's really under our control. So, because I can see somebody going ballistic at Cambridge Mall, going, "I got a ticket." You know, I can see that happen. But, you know, you're not gonna go quite that ballistic in front of the police, or in front of one. The police department is one, is police services, or like in front of the library or out here.
Right.
And maybe I wonder if it makes sense to focus our efforts a little more. If we have limited efforts on municipal facilities.
Here, and I can tell you that signs were put up as to where and where not to park, and they weren't, they just, no one listened. Yeah.
Well, 90% of people
Okay.
listen. You said no one listens,
Well,
90, a lot of people.
okay, 10% no.
Yeah.
There were so many people parked in places that were parking spots, including in front of these signs that were marked not to park. We made them safe for children and anyone to cross to get back into the parking lot because there was no space for cars to get through. I think when there's a big community event and there may not be enough parking, like this facility and the West End Community Center, maybe, I don't go to Greyhound games, but I'm assuming there as well that.
There's security in their village, in Belcher.
Yeah, there's security.
At the West End Community Center, have they taken down the old memorial, the old Amica Center yet?
They did, and they're creating a parking lot,
Yeah, because that
which
makes a big
will
jump.
help.
Yeah.
Maybe part of the problem is to
They don't wanna walk that car. The young ones don't wanna walk that car.
right now, if I can interject here, when I went on the 30th, they were laying pipe still in the ground to have water runoff. I assume that it's water runoff, so they were still constructing it. I even took a picture of the bench. Where you said like, here's a bench, you can wait for your pair bus here. And the night of the 30th of May, we had a hard time getting out of there because there was so many cars at the front door where the arena side was. That's what the guys, one of the operators says, that's where we park at the soccer fields side.
But that's not as accessible because you cannot see the fare bus pull up, because of the way the door is. It's just people are parking in front of the doorway to the arena. Permanently, that's where
Which
the
they shouldn't
problem
be
is.
doing.
They should not
And
be
that,
doing
I mean,
it
that's.
for many
that's of course.
reasons, absolutely. Somebody still can enforce that, that just seems pretty.
Carol, I don't know who would I address this to, but, so why can't they, at the entrance, paint those yellow lines, no parking, but the only people that could park there is the paramedics or ambulance or whatever.
The problem is right now, sorry for interrupting, they're doing the parking lot. So they don't really want people to park close to the parking lot. Once the parking lot's done, I think our problems will be solved. But for now, I think
You know what I picture? The same problem that they had at the hospital with the city bus.
Everybody's
The
talking.
drop off area,
Yeah.
yes. And as a person who drops off, who has to drop off people who cannot walk from a parking lot to a door. But who doesn't have a wheelchair sign, those areas are really important, but they need to be monitored as well for people who aren't parking properly. And dropping off properly or following the rules. Those areas.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in with another piece of information. So I'm not sure who it was that said something about staff monitoring parking. Yes, there are they're called enforcement
Commissioners.
No, not here. Like Ben from the pool and Abby and Dawn, who's the maintenance guy here. And I'm gonna be going through the process as well. I guess it's through council to become an enforcement officer, or I don't know what the title is, for accessible parking. The problem is that they only leave at about 4:30.
Yeah.
And that's when the problems begin.
Yes.
Because if I too, Diane, had as many issues with parking here this winter and every winter for the past
Due to low
16, 18
maintenance
years.
plowing, which really makes it super dangerous.
It was-
Okay, you know, we have to walk.
So there are some people that are able to ticket for accessible parking infractions parked on an access aisle, which, and the parking at the pool side will be done differently this summer when they repaint. They will be done a little differently. This side is conforms to the current zoning bylaw for accessible parking. So on the arena side,
Right.
the pool side still has the old style. And I don't know why it's never been updated, but it has a car space and then another space that is the exact same size as a car space that has the crosshatch parking.
Right.
So that in the winter time or any time, car fits in there perfectly, and it's not supposed to be. The other thing that we are going to be probably trialing this summer is signage in the access aisle that says access aisle, no parking. So that people will no longer be able to use the excuse, oh, I didn't know it was an access aisle, it was accessible parking. So that will also be updated. But enforcement is a huge piece of it. I can't say that there are many people out there that would want $300 tickets repeatedly.
Is that what we're at?
$300.
Perfect. Yeah, and the bottom, that getting the parking bylaw itself amended was not difficult at all, relatively speaking, was straightforward. It's the enforcement,
Right.
because of the city police issue, as previously discussed, that's why they went to the private enforcement, and then that's still a little spotty, but at least there's some beats none, to use it, but we could still use some more.
So it's a work in progress. Parking has been a work in progress since I was on the committee 18 years ago, and probably 20 years ago when you started, Craig?
Diana, parking was parking in washrooms. You wanna start, I will, if we had the copies of the meeting minutes readily available, we could go back beyond 20 years. Sure, I'm sure. This has been an evergreen.
Work in progress.
This is Carrie, this may not be relevant, but the family parking areas. They're not monitored, and that's not including people with child or it kind of looks like a family parking. Those are just,
That's a
Complimentary.
Walmart has that.
Oh, but that's something that they're doing.
It's
They are
okay,
They
well, it doesn't have anything to do with
There's
accessible.
no,
Okay.
We don't regulate that.
Right, okay.
That's something Walmart does on their own, and Rome's does it really
Right,
well.
roll rooms, yes. And now, to me, pickup orders trump anybody with a disability. Some of the other marked parking spots, making it more difficult to find parking for someone with a walker who has to now walk further to the entrance.
right, what I can tell you too, if you see those places, please let me know, because there is a site plan agreement. That when those accessible places were put in place, if they've been removed or moved, they're going in violation of the site plan agreement.
And that's a big fine.
And I don't know if they've been moved per se, but regular spots that are fairly close to the door, or closer to the door are now for people who, again, can wonderfully order online and go and pick up. And to me, that should be the furthest parking spot, you know, it's great, you can go online and order and you can drive yourself there. You don't need that prime parking spot up close for other people who are getting a ride and have a walker or any type of assistance that came in to get into that building. So, yeah, I understand the importance of the wheelchair accessible parking spot, but I feel like we would almost need more, you know?
Yes.
So many people don't have with them and are struggling.
Did we mention that we now have, that we're going to have accessible parking on Queen Street? Should we go there or not? What do you think?
Yeah, that's what was going on. Yeah, okay, see.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer to accessible parking on Queen Street will be. They, on the Queen Street, that was one thing that they had in there. They had accessible parking designated on the drawing, but I don't know what the design of that parking space looks
It's
like.
like, I can tell you because I asked the question, it's a regular parking space, a little bit longer. Okay, but it's not wider,
That's.
okay, and the sign that says this is a barrier-free parking space, do not park here unless you have one of these stickers.
Oh, okay.
Because if they try and make it wider, then you're really cutting into the sidewalk and where the. I'm not trying to defend it, this has been one of the great problems of the world for the last 50 years. You know, where you have parking, the sidewalk is quite narrow to start with, and they want to head into it further. So that's where they're at. And I think the game plan was, talking to Daryl last night, is that for each block, there's an accessible parking space on one side of the street or the other, and it varies as you go down. So, but like between Brock and Spring, there'll be one accessible parking space. Between Spring and March, there'll be one accessible parking space all the way down the street.
So that means -1 parking space for the general.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay,
That's
so if I don't know if this is turned up, but I believe people, so they said if I have a handicap sticker, we can park anywhere on the street and we don't have to pay parking.
No.
We haven't got a ticket yet.
As long as there is parking there, you still can't park in no.
Like if it's a fire, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense, but yeah, no, it's true, because in a few places that I lied to the homes, I'm sure. So I just said, oh, yeah, it's okay, we can park here and the way the license did. We don't have to pay this, I've got a sticker. It's true, and we did, and we not be getting it. My fingers were across the whole. We don't know how to use those machines that you get a ticket out of and pay for whatever.
I was gonna ask those new parking meters.
I have no idea.
How accessible are those things?
They've got signs on store windows, I think. I'm gonna go, so I think we have to go in that store and get it.
Yeah, because they're taking the meters out and replacing them with something that
Well, maybe that's it, I don't know.
Yeah,
They realize that it's free anyway.
It's another question for transit, because parking falls under transit, so we can ask about that as well.
okay.
Shall we move on? The site plan committee, Derek, could you want to make any comments with site plan committee's been busy? Did you want to make some comments on this or?
Yes, actually, I'm gonna give you the lowdown on what we did. We got asked to me, Don, Carol, and Diane next. And we got asked to, the first one we're gonna do, first one I'm gonna talk about is the Mazda dealer. The Mazda dealer on the highway,
You mean Kraus Motors?
yeah, Kraus,
Yes, so that's.
Kraus, Kraus Motors,
Yeah.
right? They wanted 18 work days to be put in. So we gave them the go ahead.
A large garage.
We will do so. But we did find some issues where their electric cars plug in, they put them right beside the accessible entrances. So we had to give them ideas on where to put the accessible entrances so that we don't bump into the plugs, the electric cars. They're coming online. Okay, so am I good so far?
Yeah.
You're good.
Bang on.
And if people reviewed the materials beforehand, they're already familiar with, you know, some of the situations as well, Derek.
Okay,
It's great.
does anybody have any questions on that one? Seeing none. We also got asked to look at a garage. A gentleman wanted to make sure that it was wheelchair accessible for his customers. Come in if they had to drop off their car. There's no access from. Third one.
Second one.
Second line, there's no access, but there's access on third line.
Pine Street.
Pine Street, thank you. And basically, this guy wants he wants to get a car, he wants to basically fix cars. And if he needs, he doesn't want to stow the shop as much. So that's why it's sort of segregated. Any more questions on that? Any comments on that?
I just, when we looked at it, I think I had a really good site plan, but we couldn't tell from his site plan the level of detail that we needed to know.
Yeah,
Hence, you know, we had a number of questions that were passed along to.
okay, you know what I was thinking of third line? The nursing home.
Yeah.
There's a nursing home going up beside another car dealer shop. It's going to be a native nursing home. And basically they were asking what we thought of the driveway, the service roads, everything like that. So basically we gave them suggestions. And when we see anything, anybody that was,
We mentioned something about transit access as well. Do you remember that, Derek?
okay, yeah, we were talking about where does transit drop, how does transit drop off at that location, so we asked them the question. They haven't gotten back to us, so.
The other part of that too was the number of barrier-free spaces.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
And maybe a description of where it's located so everybody knows where it is.
Yeah, where is it located, Derek? The whole facility, where is it?
it's a great beside the car dealership, it's close to the hospital. It's on third line, correct me if I'm wrong,
That's correct.
okay, third line and. It's again, it's tucked in from the road.
That's a good description of it. Yeah, Craig?
Question, Derek, to you about this. Now, the designation on the facility, is it designated as a retirement home or a nursing home?
It's a retirement home.
Okay, reason I ask is there are different standards of care in both those kinds of institutions. I've been tripped up on this a couple of times myself. That a retirement home has one level of care, a nursing home has another level of care pertaining to the health and well-being of the residents.
Right.
In my previous. The Ontario Finished Restaurant, when we were at the apartments there, my mother and I, there are levels of care depending on what level of service one needs. So this is the retirement home, not a full-scale long-term care nursing home, that's a separate level of care.
Well, it was called a proposed care facility, so I'm not sure they designated
Okay. then
exactly.
maybe,
Did I misunderstand some of that, Don?
Craig's got a really good point here, and the point is, if you're a retirement home, you know, the people in this room can get together and we can say, we're going to have a retirement home. If you're a designated nursing facility, which in this town, I think there's only the Davy home, Finished Rest home, and
part of the
part of the Finished Rest home is Van Dale.
Yeah.
And what's the one on Northern Avenue?
Mapleview.
Mapleview, thank you. And they're much more heavily regulated by the government, also heavily funded by the government.
Okay, so
I'm not sure what category this falls into.
So what we have to do then, the next time we get one of these, we have to be careful because we could call it a nursing home and they could come back and slap us and say, no, it's a long-term care or whatever. So we have to be careful on how we word it.
Unless, of course, Derek, maybe because you said it's a First Nations operation, there may be different standards because it's federally regulated. We're in a jurisdictional nightmare, folks. It just, I like to make sure that I know precisely what we're talking about, because the standards and requirements are quite different. And having been a resident of the seniors apartments at the Ontario Finished Rest Home Association, we should find a different name for that. But this was explained to us in great detail at the annual meetings, because they have to pass certain inspections under certain circumstances. There are people in the retirement home section of that building who actually need the care of full-scale nursing home, but the board won't throw them out. That's the Finished Rest Home board is being a little bit particular, as they're not for profit private. They'll pull things off that other enterprises wouldn't try. Including some, they've had a double long time getting their nursing home expanded. It's been promised to them umpteen times and the funding finally flowed through it. I don't want to go through the details, but it's a very strange discussion to have someone say to you at a public meeting, yeah, we're violating the following legislation by doing this. And that's literally what the annual meeting of that organization can sometimes do, not devolve into, they openly know they're violating the rule. To keep the people in their places. They're risking, God forbid, something should go wrong.
Okay, I do have a comment now, correct me if I'm wrong, so this place is supposed to be bigger than the Davy home.
I don't know if it's bigger, but it's not small, like it is big. It is. Carol, how many units they had?
Because I thought we had discussed that.
It was like 162 suites or something. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's not small.
It's not small. no.
Maybe it's a combined level of care, which, I mean, the Finished Rest Home sort of is.
Yeah.
Nursing home is attached to
Yeah.
assisted living, and maybe they're meeting all their needs. within-
You know, we had an opportunity to see the interior design layout. And if you look at it, you'd say it really looks like a nursing home. It really does. But that's like that would be big bucks, and I have not seen a funding announcement. This may be like we're hoping to get funding.
Or if it's a federally funded arrangement on through the First Nations arrangements, we may not see it until that
I understand the finished restaurant has all their funding in place.
It's finally come through, but if it's new, if it's First Nations related, those are different. Those are entirely different pots of funding and they're not as quick to announce them. In my experience, when dealing with homelessness issues, sometimes the First Nations homelessness budget sometimes gets announced later or not at all. But funding arrives, but they don't do a lot of, they don't do the PR work. Fear of backlash.
What we need is a good election, right? Then we'd have lots of funding.
Well, those things are connected, are they?
I just wanted to be, does anybody else have any questions?
Sorry about that.
I wanted to say, me and Diane meet on the phone, every month and go through this. And I cannot read, but I was able to remember my own report.
Very well.
Very well.
So, yeah, so. Like, I mean, this is something new, this was nothing I knew before, but I'm starting to know it now, so. If I miss anything, just everybody give me a nudge and say, okay, you missed this, but I did pretty good.
You did great, and this is really important, because this is an area where this committee can make an impact on development that's occurring in our community. That's why I'm looking forward to like more detailed drawings and more detailed comments from us on Fleet Street.
Yes.
I really think that we can have a positive effect on that. I also think that, you know, not that it wasn't good before, but that the cooperation we're getting from staff in the city is really good these days.
And I thought the Queen Street was redone not that long ago, with the trees and the boxes, it was beautiful.
80s.
1982, I was there.
80s.
So, it still looks good.
No, it
I
was
mean,
kind
it
of
needs
fun,
cleaning up, it needs to be, you know, but
you know.
the boxes with the trees and petunias that they put in the summer, it's just beautiful.
But the trees were all dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that was unfortunate, they're not all dead.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, they're pretty much going on, with this, I don't know, I see a trunk sort of.
Oh, look at that tree, don't worry about it.
There's one.
Actually, in the AODA standard, and we were talking about that, you know, the AODA standard is a hard level surface. I think that's all it is.
Firm level surface.
Firm level surface, thank you. And, you know, we need to go back and look at those drawings, because we had an understanding that there was going to be a lot of concrete. It was going to be a sidewalk, and they were only going to use the paving stones as accents. And we need to go back and take a look at that, like at the level of drawings they presented at the open house last night. To be honest, I wasn't really looking for, was it there?
It was there. They had a legend on one of the maps, and if anybody wants the materials, I've been given the go ahead to share them. It shows paving bricks on the boulevard part and the concrete for the sidewalk part up against the building, like a 6 foot wide
Yeah,
sidewalk,
it
and
is.
the rest is the boulevard, and I think that's what's called AODA something.
Yeah.
The brick was thinking about, I know.
Yeah,
They talked about this, I think, actually, just before we retired, Don, they wanted to keep these bricks. Because it lasted 30 years, it's still in good shape. But we want to make sure the cement sidewalk is there. Okay, so the cement sidewalk, and then certain places, I think the bricks will be put on both sides. And some places, it'll only be on one side, but between the bricks and the sidewalk, we're gonna put a different kind of a brick, kind of a longer and skinnier brick, so you have the sidewalk, this long skinny brick, and then those bricks that are there now. And the long skinny one was supposed to be a different color to guide people. But I don't know if that's what they ended up doing, or is it just the sidewalk and the bricks?
Your memory is really good. Like a lot better than mine, because I'm listening to you talk and I'm going, yeah, she's right. You know, that's what they were looking at. And one of the reasons for using these bigger paving stones, like these bigger bricks, is because they move less. They have a less likeliness to move. But yeah, we'll go back and look at that. Maybe we'll see you there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't go the other night, I had a prior commitment to, or last night, I guess. But I was at that other one, yeah.
Does anybody have anything else? Because Bill, man, you do, I can tell.
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
On. What day of the week is July 5th? Wednesday. On Wednesday, July 5th, Grocery for Good is going to be hosting a community barbecue. It's free. It'll be from 11 till 2 on the corner of Gore and Albert. And we received funding from the Community Foundations of Canada for consultants. So our consultants are going to be there to do some general stakeholder engagement. They're based out of Guelph. They're called the Community Company. So we want as many folks that can come out, and also city staff's going to be there with the Queen Street plans, so that those can be reviewed, as well as I'm going to ask other social services agencies through Megan at DSAP to invite some other tables to come. And yes, it's completely free. Also looking for volunteers who want to barbecue or just help with the lineup and stuff like that. M&M's is doing the setup, but we have to do the work. So July 5th from 11 to 2 at the corner of Gore and Albert.
So it's July the 5th.
July 5th.
Wednesday.
And Stephanie just put it in the minutes.
Yeah.
And maybe-
So we're doing a free community barbecue. From 11 to 2, it's all through Grocery for Good. So, and our consultants are gonna be here, so we've got funding for business plan, strategic plan, sustainability plan, as well as additional funding to improve our website and our technology and all that kind of stuff, so it all kind of intertwines. So the consultants, we put out an RFP, we had 7 responses. They scored the highest, and they worked with both food security and employment for persons with barriers. So it's a really good, great fit. So, so if anyone, we just want a very broad focus of stakeholders. So corner Gore and Albert come in a free hot dog or hamburger. And whoever wants to know.
You have a poster or some kind of.
We're gonna be working on something. Yeah, I just met with some board members today, so we're gonna be putting together something.
Yeah, when you have that, please send it over, I'll send it out to the
Yeah.
committee as a reminder as well.
And would you mind if I shared it?
Oh, no, I know, no,
Okay.
certainly, yeah.
I'm doing that regardless.
Free lunch.
And how many volunteers do you need?
You don't want like the ideal amount are like 2 people cooking, 2 people serving, and like 1 person. So 5 at a time, so 5 and do like 1 hour at a time. So I will have 3 summer students. So probably looking at if I could get, you know, a dozen volunteers that would commit to like a 1 hour time frame. They also, the consultants, like getting in and getting dirty, but I really want them to focus in on, you know, stakeholder engagement. So yeah, we will. I'm DSAB tomorrow, so I'll talk to Katie Kirkman about EMS if they want to, like, see who else wants to be involved. But Peter already said they're going to set up a booth, so it's great. Yeah.
And just on other topics, not to drag this out, because I'm the chair, I'm not supposed to do that. But I had an opportunity to go through the Windsor Park retirement home yesterday. And I've been really impressed with the work that they've done in there, and like, they have done a ton of. But aside from that, he's got some interesting features that they did, not because he was fortunate, but just because he did it. Every suite has an accessible washroom, every suite has a roll-in shower, there are no bathtubs. And they have hands-free door opening, which I found really interesting on every door. And well, not within the suite, but like when you're coming from your, all the way into your unit. And you have a little key fob and you kind of wave it, and then you just wave your hand in front of this button and the door opens. And it has the same system on the outside, you just wave, or on the inside, just wave your hand and the door opens for you. And I'm thinking like, this is like, I give him full marks for.
Rose, very nice.
Yeah, that's Rose Barangi was the key guy behind that. They put a ton of money into that.
Yeah.
I hope he's successful with it. And it was an important project for the downtown as well, because it is the largest building on Queen Street. You don't want the largest building on Queen Street to be empty.
No, sorry.
What about the patio on the roof?
There's no patio on the roof yet because they're trying to figure out, the patio was never gonna be on top of the 9-story part.
No.
It was on the lower part, but
Yeah.
they're still trying to figure out what to do with that. It's like where the bank was in there. They moved from, let's renovate it, and then they thought that wasn't a good plan, to let's demolish it, and they found out maybe that wasn't a good plan, and he's really struggling on what to do with that part. But it would be such a nice feature is to have a patio with 3 or 4 floors up that overlook the water, which is what he would like to
Difficult
call.
to go out and watch the fireworks, just.
Well, the interior of the building is laid out to allow that access. So, I mean, it did, and for people who remember the old Windsor Park, forget it, because they took everything out. Like they took everything out. There was nothing. You could stand on one side of the 5th floor and look across. There was nothing there, no walls. Everything is brand new.
You know, if they're gonna have an open house.
They have. I think, Diana, you can go there anytime and request a tour.
Oh,
Okay, there's a sign on the base, going down Main Street.
He has a lady who is what works during the day, and she'll take you around. They didn't do any marketing. I'm way off topic here, sorry, but just as a point of interest, they didn't do any marketing because he didn't want people coming into the building until it was finished. He didn't want people to come in and go, oh, geez, look, I got with a hard hat, this is kind of messy, you know, no, but like now it's.
Makes sense, you know. Well, the example gone earlier in the day about the new community center with obvious
Decent.
parking lot not being done has created ongoing problems that should have been addressed. If a private developer, I understand the point of.
Yeah.
Wait until it's done,
That was his game plan.
seems like a sensible plan. But then again, that's the question of retirement home being nursing. That goes back to the issue, that is a retirement.
Yeah, this is a retirement.
Sorry,
Lunch was excellent, by the way.
totally. I'm just
Did you
saying,
reserve your room? I should have last night.
Literally, I didn't reserve my chicken Caesar salad wraps. No, I know that the only reason I bring this to your attention is because he's gone out of his way to make it as accessible as possible. Good for him.
Yeah.
That's great.
the only downside to that is the cost of operating that. Look, I don't mean this in a negative sense, he's a proper business. But difficulty. Technology, the improvements are so tied to cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unless you. There will be, I'm certain they'll be successful. Because that was a successful time before the renovation. And it's turned over, a woman refused the dorm because there's a paralegal matter that the donor doesn't understand. You can't have a non-related business. Universities can't own a non-related business, so they could have kept it as a retirement home. In the family, there are office buildings, like state around Phoenix. That are regular office buildings. You can't do that in Ontario because we have different rules for our universities.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the change was made.
Sure.
Yeah, I got a question. What's going on with our website, or the city website?
I have no news on that. I have asked a couple times where we're at, and I've not received a reply, and I assume that's because there's no news. I'm sure they're still working on it, but I don't even think the request for proposal has gone out yet. Because I asked to be part of that.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
So,
And then they just posted a digital communications media person,
right,
so.
We're curious about that.
yeah, no news on it. Good question.
Well, folks, if no one has anything else, thank you very, very much. I hope you have a great summer.
Oh, one more thing.
Sure, Carol.
I would like to have a bench and a tree. Across the street from the Canadian Hotel. I guess it would be across the street from the Bel Air Motel.
Right.
Where the gully is,
What's that?
where like the,
Where the gully is?
yeah,
Yeah, there's that big empty grass space and then a car lot. It'd be so nice to have a bench there with the tree beside it and the garbage can. For when I don't want to stay home, I could go for a walk over there, go over to Timmy's, grab a coffee and go sit down there.
Your own personal park.
My own personal park. A lot of people walk by there and there's something sweet.
Actually, technically it would be a parquet. I
Yeah,
believe. It would be
yeah.
Carol's parquet.
Yeah,
That's right, so we name it Harold's for that.
Harold, what is the space? Go, tell me that again.
okay, it's right across the street from the Canadian and Bel Air.
so it's pin side on that.
It's on him, yeah, okay, so it'd be more across from Bel Air, which is right beside the Canadian. Okay, we look across the street there on the left, you see a gully,
A huge ravine.
a huge one,
The city
yeah,
limits.
and then a huge patch of grass, there's no trees on it, and then the car lot.
I used to live there was a house way back. And they demolished it, that's where the bears live.
I grew up on Main Street, 315,
You see them.
the red brick house with the turret, yeah.
We lived on Elmwood afterwards, but my kids were.
I went to St. James.
Not to go down there because the
We
bears.
used to go down there, when we were kids. We were back.
Because I think it would look really nice there and,
I don't know if that's city like if that part is city property or not.
We had a property exchange with the Honda dealership.
Yeah,
And I think we got the property on top and he got the property in behind.
yeah, I
We used
don't
to have a
know.
laneway and some other properties back in there, but it was done as a property exchange, I know. And I'm sure that even like just a tree and a bench, or they'd be within our what we want, so we can remember that.
Nice idea.
Great idea, you know?
Yeah, Harold's like-
And our parks guys are open to this, like they're always looking for places, they plant like 400 trees a year.
Yeah.
They're always,
Some of your trees, maybe, I'll talk to Susan. I'm gonna see Susan tomorrow.
excellent. very good.
Public Works, barbecue. Well, maybe go to the shed.
yeah.
Perfect.
All right, I'm on to the soup kitchen board meeting.
Good. Have a wonderful summer, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
If there's goodies left, please take some with you. I have some Ziploc bags if you need.